Welcome to our latest edition of the Showbox Sires series, releasing our new bulls at Select Sires on dairy business and the podcast series, The Dairy Voice. Today, we're introducing one of our newest bulls for the Showbox Sires lineup. And as always, we sit on the Showbox and visit with the breeders and the people behind the bull and the cow that we're talking about today. We're really excited to introduce to you today a bull Mike and I have been waiting a long time to get our hands on, 744HO18214 Siri. Siri is a son of one of the most popular cows in the world, Unix Sally. And to help us tell about the bull and the pedigree and how to use the bull are two important people in Sally's world. Eddy, manager of Milk Source Genetics, and a guy that works with the cow day in, day out. And then Bob Sabo, who is a partner in the ownership group that owns Sally and has been involved with Sally since the start. Bob had a great career at Select Sires, and we're glad to bring him back in front of the Select Sires family and other listeners. Along with them, I do have Mike Duckett, of course, our partner in Showbox Sires, to help us get through this podcast and learn more about the bull. So I'm going to start. Bob, welcome to you.
Thanks, Tim. I'm glad to be here today and discuss Sally and the bull and have a little conversation about them. So glad to be here.
Well, thanks. And Eddy, I know you're just back from ice fishing. Do you want to give us a report of ice fishing before you tell us about Sally?
Well, it was pretty slow ice fishing, but it was nice weather, so it was all right.
Yeah, I got a report from his wife that said they're still eating hot dogs, so it couldn't have been that good.
Yeah, we're not going to feed ourselves on.
Well, I know, Mike, before we start, you and I have tried to get a bull of this cow ever since basically she was a 2-year old, and we had some bad luck with another bull and all that. Tell the listeners a little about your fascination with this cow, Mike.
Well, certainly, you're right, Tim. We've been very excited to have a son from Sally because she's one of those cows that everybody loves. Sally, a cow that not only is she a show cow, but when you look at Sally, you think of cows that probably are they're fun cows to work with in the barn, and then when you can take them to shows and compete the way she has, and that's why we kind of combined her to one of our favorite cows, Tim, Doc. Two cows that they're great cows to have it at home, and then you can load them up and take them to the show and have fun with them there, and it's hard to find those kind of cows.
And Mike, if we think about the best traits of Doc 8784, an excellent 96 point cow on the top side of the pedigree, and the best traits of Sally, don't they combine pretty neat?
That was the excitement of putting these two together because, if you were making a mating the way these two cows should breed, it makes a logical cross on the families.
And Mike, just tell the listeners a little more. You referenced Doc 8784. Tell them a little bit about Have a Dream, the bull himself.
Well, Have a Dream is obviously an energy son that Canada and the U.S., they've been a lot of energy daughters calving in with great udders. And when we made that mating, he came out a bull that worked well in Canada for conformation and type in the U.S. We unfortunately only had one daughter, but she was a great young cow that's went on to a new home and has done well. But lots of Have a Dream calves that are impressing people out selecting for sales and stuff, seeing these calves, and a bull that should start getting some daughters milking come fall.
Well, that leads me into my next question, Eddy. I know the bull has a couple sisters running around at Milk Source, and you've been excited about them. Tell us about your Have a Dream calves, particularly out of Sally.
There's two full sisters to Siri. They're actually the only two Have a Dream calves we have right now, but they're really maybe my favorite two young calves out of her. I think they're both winter yearlings. They're super wide chested, straight lined, wide rumped, just lots of dairy strength to them. Really good feet and legs. Like because of them too, I've gone back to use more Have a Dream on some other cows, and I think they're really exciting.
And I was at the farm, Tim, a month and a half ago, and Eddy showed me those heifers, and I hadn't seen them maybe as hut calves or something, and they are like he just described. They're deep, wide-chested, straight line kind of heifers, really nice heifers.
Well, and you two, Bob and Ed, you've seen the pictures of the bull here recently that I sent over. I'm anxious for our listeners to see the pictures. He kind of looks like them, doesn't he, guys?
Yes, very much. With his depth of body and stuff, when I saw the picture yesterday, when you sent it over, I thought of those heifers right away.
And Eddie, they're heifers that, again, you said you went back and used the sire a little more, but it speaks of volumes to what Sally does too with her breeding, right? And we'll get into that a little more, but this is kind of what Sally does, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I really like about all the Sally daughters, I guess, so far we've had. Like, she really throws that powered chest that she has, you know. They're wide, almost all of her daughters are really wide chested daughters, and they stand super square on their front feet, which I think we all know is an issue that we're all dealing with.
Yeah, we've recent podcasts, Mike and I have talked a lot about that, about squaring up our cattle and getting some width in the chest to get that done. And one of the favorite views of Sally is from the front end. Most of us have to look at her from behind because we can't beat her, but if you do get to look at her from the front end, she does have a chest, doesn't she?
She sure does. And like I said, seems to be really breathing it all the way through. So I like that.
So, Bob, tell us about the cast of characters that owns this cow. I think a lot of our listeners may not even know the story. How did you get the cow, and who all's involved with this cow?
Well, it all started in 2021 at Expo. I had talked to Jim and John previous to that, as far as maybe getting in on some cows someday that they were interested in purchasing. So when I got to Expo Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, when I first talked to those guys, they said Blondin had a cow tied in there. And I know Eddy, when I talked to him, he had said that he had looked at her a couple times. And I don't remember in 21 if they were still showing on Friday or Saturday, but we looked at the cow, and as far as the people involved with it, obviously Milk Source is the majority owner. Lori Fisher, who owns a bunch of animals with Milk Source, or a few animals with Milk Source, she got in on the cow, and then Cy Letter, and everybody knows, or not everybody, but most people know Cy. And Cy and I have owned cattle together since the early 90s. So, we had kicked it around that we'd maybe like to get in on something. So we talked to Jim and John at the beginning of the week, and Eddy could probably correct me on it, but it was either the night before the show or the morning of the show is when they had the price, and we thought it was workable and that kind of thing. And we bought the cows. So that's how it all got started.
It's a great story, Mike. We love to dig into the stories behind the cows. When you hear Bob say that, think about how patient Lori and Bob are to work with Jim and John and Eddy and Cy. They got to be saints, don't they, Mike?
There's obviously the best people in the Holstein business, and Jim and I've known Eddy for a long time, and Jim and John I've known them for a lot of years now too, and just great people to work with.
So, Bob, there were 3,000 cows at Expo that day, and you chose to invest your money in Sally. What were the things that made you say, whatever the price is, X dollars, either, this cow can either do something or get us our money back or whatever? Is there something that comes to your mind that really rang true with you?
Obviously, when we saw her, she was a cow that we all really liked. Again, there is a lot of those kind at Madison standing in the stalls, but on the packs. But she was a cow that really we felt had a lot of potential. She obviously had a great udder. She wasn't really fresh that long. Eddy might correct me on this. I believe she had calved in the end of August, so she wasn't quite peeled down yet for that show, I guess you would say. She was so well balanced, not extreme on stature. Again, the big wide chest that we talked about before that she has, and really good feet and legs, and a cow with just a lot of style and balance. So she had a good pedigree, and she was a cow that we were hoping, that she would breed on besides showing. And that was one of the things I was interested in too, is not just maybe buying a show cow, but a cow that hopefully we could breed on and make some daughters that people would like. And from that end, end of the business. So
And
that's
it's really exciting, guys, to think a cow like this now has a home in AI. For quite a few years, we didn't work with cows like this. And Eddie, I know, you and I have talked a lot about this, how exciting it is to get cows like this around the world through sons, because that's how they spread their seeds, right?
That's what I think has been the probably the biggest surprise. I mean, when we bought Sally, like Bobby said, she wasn't ready yet and little green, and we thought she had a big future. But the fact that the way she's been throwing genomics, I guess, everything's testing out so well, and the ability to be able to do this, we have people asking for embryos and genetics out of Sally all over the world all the time. This is a way they can all kind of get a little piece and join in on the family.
So, Eddie, you've worked with more great cows in the past decade than most people would in their whole lifetime. And I know you've got a lot of favorites, but I don't think I'm stretching to say Sally's one of them. What is it about working with this cow day in, day out that makes Eddie so, like her so much?
Well, Sally's just, she's just one of those cows that really is just a really aggressive cow. She's not a cow that you have to baby or I think it's the coolest thing about Sally is I don't think when you're at a show or somewhere else, even at the farm, I don't care if you milk 12 cows in Switzerland in the mountains or you milk 10,000 cows in California. Everybody wants to take Sally home and thinks she could do good in their environment. And that's the kind of cool part. And the other thing with Sally is she's probably the wettest cow I've ever milked. I've getting pretty old now, so I've milked a lot of cows. I think she's going to get really close to making 50,000 pounds of milk this lactation. And that's with us trying to hold her back. So she's just really easy doing cow. You never have no problems with her. And like I said, I don't know what she would milk if she was on full TMR, but it would be a lot of milk.
Well, and when you look at the bone structure of the cow and the flatness of her rib and the length of her neck, and then you get behind her and her rear udder is about 4 axe handles wide, it does tell you this is a milk cow. Eddie, the first time I saw her this year was when I came to Milk Source that afternoon, and Sharon and I walked in the barn, and Sally was just standing there in her work clothes, right? She was about ready to be milked, and it doesn't matter when you look at her, whether she's going in the ring or she's standing in the barn, like you say, she's kind of the dairyman's dream. I compare her, Mike, a little bit to Hazel, a cow that everybody just loves because, like you said, Eddie, doesn't matter what size operation this cow would fit. Mike, you worked with Hazel. Do you see some similarities there?
Yeah, for sure, Tim. I think that's why cows like Sally, Hazel, Durham Treasure, a few of those cows, people come to stand behind them from different countries from all over. And you're right, Eddie. They could take that cow home and she would perform well in their situation. And those cows they're unique. There's a good bunch of those cows that can do that, but then there's also cows that have to be managed and whatever. And I think people really appreciate those kind that could work in almost every environment.
And Eddie, you said it to us at the farm that day. All you got to do is get out of her way and let her go, right? Like she's that kind of cow.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just got to try not to screw anything up. She's just gonna work herself to death. Like the only thing she wants to do every day is get out of her pen and get over into a tie stall and eat more TMR if you want to know the truth.
that's
not a bad trait for a cow to have, is it?
And I've seen the cow when I've been there when they've been feeding and stuff, and she'll stand there with her head by the gate and just swinging her head when they're coming with the grain cart and stuff. She just, like Eddie said, she just wants to eat.
And Bob, talk about that just a little bit because we talked about the width of chest of this cow. One thing I love about Sally is when you get in front of her and her head. Like Bob, you've looked at a lot of cows over the years. You've evaluated a lot of cows, and I think your partner, Cy Letter, says a lot of a cow starts with her melon, right? With her head.
That's right, and
And
that's the term he uses too. Is they got to have a big melon on them, and he learned that from Alfred Habercorn, his mentor, when he started classifying. But yes, and that's one thing. Like I said, I've known Cy since uh he'll probably correct me on it because you know how he is with dates, but since about 1977 or so. And especially after he got working for Holstein, is that you got to look at the front of the cow, the width of the muzzle, and that kind of thing. And it carries through, and she tracks straight on her front legs, and just things that you really want in a dairy strength cow.
I'm looking at the picture of her right now. Her head is so beautifully dairy from the side, but when you look at it from the front, it's got that big wide nostril and wide muzzle and like you said, Eddie and Bob, you've both said you love to watch this cow eat, right? Like it's kind of a treat to watch a great cow eat.
She's always the first one and not, never timid and never backs away from the feed bump. Those are the kind of cows that are easier to work with.
So, Eddie, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with just what this cow has done in the show ring, from a milking yearling to a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old to this year. I don't need all the details, but just generally give me the highlights of what the cow has done in her show career.
Well, I think, yeah, like I said, she started off there that year when we bought her. When we bought her, we didn't think she was ready enough to probably get up in there, but she ended up being second that year at Madison. It was milking yearling. It was best udder in class. We were really excited. Then the next year, as a 2-year-old, it was really tough. She was fighting it out with the cow from Butler View, all year, switching back and forth. And Butler View cow, she was second to her, and that was really fun. But then when she come as a 3-year-old, when she really turned it on. She was intermediate at both shows, reserve grand at the Royal. Again, she had a year off and then come back this year and then was won her class again at the Royal again. It was a lot of fun. So.
And I think, Eddie, maybe one of the coolest things about this cow, we're going to talk about reproduction and reproductive efficiency. Think about that. And Bob, you've seen show cows forever. This cow calved as a milking yearling, a senior 2, and a 3, and a senior 3. Bang, bang, boom. How tough is that in your opinion?
It's amazing what Eddy has done with the cow as far as, I mean, she breeds back. I don't remember the exact sequence, but I know, I guess when she was a milking yearling there, she calved the end of August. And then the next year he backed her up to, I believe it was June or something. Or
yeah, I think she calved in June that year.
Yeah. And then I think even the next time maybe backed her up a little bit more. And she liked semen. She settled all the time and milking a lot, and that was really great. And that's one of the reasons for her success, that she could come back to back and back, keep coming back like that. And like you said, there's very few cows that can do that. Get a cow that'll calve and then they don't see him for a couple of years or that kind of thing. But she's stood the test of time that way, just coming back all the time.
And Mike, I want your comments on that because I think one thing about Sally that's so important is this back to back to back thing as a young cow and backing her up 30, 40, 50 days every time. We can give Eddie all the credit in the world and the team at Milk Source. Cow has to have something in her, Mike, to do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and those cows that can do that, that just proves how valuable those cows really are. Because I remember the time when you're dumping embryos in them, you're doing that, you're fighting, you're turning them loose with a jumper bull, you're doing all these things to try to get these things pregnant. And here's a cow that calves every year, but only, and she's going the other way in her calving interval, which every dairyman knows that open cows cost you money. Like you got to get these cows bred back, and yeah, it's a different world for the shows. I mean, we're getting them, pushing these cows to get bred. You're trying to show them, you're hauling them around, you're doing all these things, and she's proved that she can do that right back every year, and that's you don't find very many that can do that.
Mike, that's a trait that you and I have thought a lot about as we pick our bull mothers, and you find a cow like Sally. Why we were so hungry to get a bull out of this cow because it's so hard to do. I think the cow reproductively has an extra gear to be able to do that, to be under the stress that you put them under. And yeah, she gets great care, but I don't care how good a care you get. Eddie, when you're on the road, like these cows go on the road to the Wisconsin show, to Madison, to the Royal, and do everything in between. It's amazing, isn't it, that a cow does that?
Yeah, for sure. Like Mike said, I mean, we all know what it's like and the struggles it can be. But yeah, she's been very good breeding. And the only year she had a year off is the year that she actually just absorbed a calf there a little bit late after the Royal, and we didn't have enough time to breed her back. So, and then she bred the next year, the first service. and she's bred again to calve next year in June. So,
Yeah,
like you said, she's due back again. So, should
I
be
think
fun.
that's important that she is due back again. So really, 4 out of 5 years in a row, and one was a little bit by choice
Yeah.
because you know at some point we all have to make a little extra money with these cows too. Brings me to my next question for you guys. There's a lot of daughters of Sally out there and a lot of successful ones. Bob or Ed, you can take turns on this. Tell me about some of your favorite daughters of Sally and what they've done. Maybe Ed, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. We had last year we sold there was one flush to tattoo we did to her, and we sold all three of those calves. I think they sold really well at the sales all spring, but I think it was really highlighted by the one that Pine Tree bought at sale there at the Nathan Thomas's sale, and Vera and Pine Tree owned her, and she was first place fall calf at the Royal. I think she was sixth maybe at Madison, but at the Royal she really looked good. So that's pretty cool that Sally also has a daughter that won at the Royal and could be, really exciting next year when she calves.
And it seems like her offspring, Bob, have been in demand. Like the prices for her calves in every sale have been extreme, haven't they?
They've been extreme. We've been really happy how they've done. I know we sold a architect in the Nashville sale a couple of years ago, and that was a calf, just a calf at that time. And I believe she's 88 now. They're doing some work with that cow and selling some offspring. And the Pazel daughters that Sally had have sold really well. And I just saw an ad that I think in the sale they're coming up the next week or something. There's some choices out of her, some embryos or something. So, and she's going to be due in spring, I believe. I saw. So, yeah, it's been really exciting. We talked about the show cow, but she's more in a show cow. And when you can start having daughters that can win at the Royal and stuff, that makes it pretty exciting. It should keep the demand for offspring keep going.
Mike, to keep going down the success of Sally, you and I invested in a couple daughters of this architect Bobby's talking about. Talk about our success with them.
We have a red Hulu that ended up fourth at Expo, and just two tremendous heifers. And they have genomics and type and kind of like Sally, the kind of the total package as we've been working with them a bit.
And I love them because in my part of our business, Mike, I do a lot of the egg negotiations and egg sales, and they're like evaporation. When we get them, they're gone. All you got to do is put the word out. We've got some eggs out of the Sally granddaughter. Boom, they're gone. I like that because it makes my life easy. You know, Ed, I guess as we talk about the cow and her popularity, you've talked about why you think she's such a popular cow. Do you think this cow can just have a huge impact in the next decade in the business?
I think she could. Like I said, not just trying to hide on one thing, but from the few daughters she's had fresh, the architect out there that Andrews we have a just fresh alligator, really young, like not even two yet. She's throwing her udder. Plus, she throws that width and strength, width all the way through that muzzle, like you said. And they're moderate stature too, right? So we're not getting too big. You've got to think of when we bought Sally, I said, we got to go look at the little short, fat one down there in the Blondin string, So, and she developed into what she is. So that's what I like about her. She throws that strength and power and development.
So, Mike, you've got the numbers in front of you now. Tell our listeners a little about what you see in the numbers of the bull, why we like him so well, why we think he can be an impact. And then, Bob, I'm going to switch to you and let you talk about the linear a little bit as you think about what the customer that you use to service wants. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Tell me a few highlights on his stat sheet, if you would.
Well, certainly, as we've talked about Sally, you talk about all the good things she does. She makes a lot of milk. She breeds back, and she's moderate stature, and she's throwing a lot of type because she's making offspring that performs well at big shows and stuff. But if you look at the bull, he's 300 of milk, which after the rollback, that's a good number. So you're going to get a nice milk cow out of the deal. He's almost 3 points of type. For me, that's a good number to be at because you're not getting the extremes there. You're getting a nice cow that's got a lot of balance to him. over 2 points on udder composite. And then when you look at cell count, it's under 3. So you're dealing with exactly what Sally is a balanced cow that milks and does it fairly easily, and just I think when you look at the bull's numbers, and then he converts over to Canada well, being he's 11 on confirmation, 11 in mammary, so it gives you that consistency and balance in his proof that makes these kind of cows.
I think his balance and all those things you mentioned, Mike, really make him, again, just like Sally, kind of the dairyman's dream sort of bull. Bob, you've been in the AI business and the cattle breeding business a long time. Take a look at his linear and tell us what sticks out to you as you would if you were going up and down the road trying to mate to this bull.
If you look at his linear, he's like we talked about with Sally, not an extreme stature cow. And so this bull's linear, he's not extreme on stature, which he can bring the stature down on some of these real tall, narrow ones. And he's a little over 2 points. They're open, yet they're going to be strong and they're deep. He's 1.83 on depth of body. So you can see the depth at the front end and stuff coming through from Sally. Also, the bull is going to make him wide rumped, and he's also going to put a little slope to the rump, which we know that's a darn good thing to have that a slight slope than some of these that can tend to get a little high pinned. The feet and legs are real solid. They track well, which is a trait coming from Sally. And then another thing that he'll make the teats just a little bit longer. And for some of these cows and some of this breeding, that too many short teats on cows, that should be something that people really look at. So he's just really well balanced. He doesn't have the extreme things that are bad that you want to avoid. He just looks real solid through everything.
Totally agree. And Mike, you and I look at the first 5 linear traits a lot because we see a lot of 3-point bulls that are 4.5 points of stature and still are only a point wide or a point and a half wide and only 3/4 of a point dairy form. Look at this bull. I mean, his first 5 categories are picture perfect, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think you'll find too many bulls in the breed anywhere that will have those first 5 linear traits that close to 2, if any. And then, like Bobby said, with the rump angle and the teat length. But then the impressive part is when you get to talking fore udder and rear udder height and width, they're crowding 3. This bull's going to breed a lot like Sally. I really feel that way. And the linears on the bull is just about what you would say if you sat down with a pencil and scribbled out linears. If you were looking at Sally, that's exactly what you would get.
That's funny because Eddie, I was going to ask you to get out your crayons and try to paint a picture of what this cow would look like looking at Siri's linear. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's like when we got the genomics back at them, and when you sent them over to me, and I think the more I've looked at them, that's exactly like what those 2 sisters look like too. Like it's just exactly what they are. And it's kind of cool when the genomics maybe match up to the conformation of the animals. I think it's what we're all looking for, right? You want a little proof in the pudding, just not the numbers, right? So I think he's really a balanced bull, like they said.
Well, good. Well, guys, this has been fun. I want to leave our listeners with maybe one of the most critical pieces of information they love on these podcasts, Mike. They do want more of this. Eddie, we'll start with you because you're one of the youngest guys on this podcast. Uh, um, uh, Tell us what cow families or bull families, sire lines you think this bull is going to work well on. You and I talk about this all the time. So many times, bulls and how they match to the population is what makes them great. And when you can use the bull on the right cow, you and I have had this discussion that it's just going to make it easier all the way around. So
Honestly, I think, he's a little bit different where you can almost use him anywhere, really. But I mean, I think any kind of sidekick blood is going to be a perfect match because everything out of Sally gets a real spring and openness to their rib structure and that real will to milk. So any sidekick, your masters and majors, and I think even all the way through on your lambdas and stuff, this could really work good. I think he's a really easy bull to use. Really, I was thinking about it before, and you could kind of blanket breed with him. He's so balanced. I think.
And Bobby, again, we let Eddie take the thunder here, but
And I figured Eddy would take that line of bulls, which is great because it worked out good. I took the select sire kind of angle of the bulls. I paged through the bull book again the other day when we knew we were going to be doing this, and some of the bulls that I looked at is there's a ton of Hulus out there right now that need to be bred, and this bull is going to add some strength and power through the front end, probably straighten up the rear legs a little bit, make them track a little better. Luster P is a bull that was at select for a long time and a lot of great daughters. And I think he'll match up really well with the Luster P's. People had a lot of success with him. Your tattoo flash bull, I don't know how old they are exactly, but I think anything with some tattoo blood, actually, this bull could work real well on. Even like some of these black acetylines and stuff, as they're getting a little older and stuff, maybe put just a little more width to them and that. So those are some bulls that I thought of from the select sire herds that have a lot of daughters out of those kind of bulls that he'll match up really well with.
well, those are great comments. I think it really takes us down a road, so many options for this bull, and we've mentioned bulls with many, many daughters in the population.
I was just going to say another bull, and I'm not smart enough to have the calculator out, but there's a lot of good Hancocks out there and a calculator for inbreeding, but there's a lot of good Hancocks out there, but they could use a little power and drop those pins down too. So he's another possibility.
Good point. Mike, just quickly, we work so hard at finding non-lambda pedigrees, right? Because the world's full of lambdas, especially the show cow world today. What do you think of that with this bull? Is that maybe his sweet spot?
Well, I think, if you look at his linears being almost 3 points for four udder attachment, I mean, if you're going to pick on some of the lambdas, four udder. If you're going to pick on some of the lambdas, you'd want to widen them out in the front end. Well, this bull's perfect for that. So I think the bull has lots of places he can be used, and I think it's really neat that Sally's got a little different kind of pedigree that's not normally in AI, with the exception of Doc on the top side with Have a Dream. You can pretty much use him anywhere and everywhere because of the bulls that's in the pedigree. They're not the mainstream bulls that we're breeding stuff to right now. So I think he's got a lot of places, and all this lambda stuff would be ideal.
Well, guys, Mike and I do these podcasts quite often, and every bull we do, and I'm not going to lie, this has been one of my favorite ones. Sitting on the Showbox with you three legendary guys talking about breeding cows. It's fun for me, and I know it's fun for our listeners. Bob, I'm going to let you wrap up from your standpoint, and then we'll let Eddy just your final thoughts on this bull, and thank you again for being on with us.
Well, I appreciate it a lot, Tim. It's been fun. When Mike called that day, I thought he had left me a message. I thought, I wonder what Mike wants. And then I found out. And yeah, it's been fun kind of preparing for this a little bit and just looking at some things. But, again, the bull, I think he can do a lot of things in what the breed needs with putting some power in through the front end. And again, the rump width. The udders, just keep improving the udders. Like you said, this bull should breed through like Sally with the fore udder, the rear udder height. That's almost 3 points. And again, the pedigree being a little different, that he can be used on this lambda blood and some of these other bulls that I mentioned. And I'm hoping, and we're all hoping, that this bull should be popular. People love the cow, and I think people will be excited to try a son of her. So.
Well said. Great wrap up, and I totally agree. Eddy, you get the back cleanup here.
Well, like Bobby said, thanks for asking me to be on this. It's been a lot of fun. We've talked about it. He's a really balanced bull, but I think the kind of neat thing about him would be, everybody knows I'm not that much of a liar, really, so I'm not lying. If I was milking 5,000 cows, I'm not sure I wouldn't order a bunch of this semen. And if I was trying to make a show calf, I think you could use, I think that's what's kind of cool about them. Some of the times we're using these bulls that we're trying to make show calves or something like that. But if you're milking a lot of cows, I think you want to use this bull too. And I think it's what makes them a little different than some of the stuff we use nowadays. Thanks for having
Well,
me today.
it's great information. And Mike, I remember the day we saw the genomics on this bull, and what we thought this bull could do. I'll let you wrap up your thoughts on the bull.
We're excited to use him here and already have, and I think Eddy at Milk Source has too, and we're excited to see what kind of calves we make.
Thanks, Mike. And it reminds me, Eddy, I just wanted to go back to you for 1 second quickly about we have used him in IVF a little bit. We've got some early semen we're making calves with. Tell us about your success as, we talked about Sally's fertility. Guess what? Like mother, like son, maybe?
Yeah, at least that was my experience. We had some early semen. You told me you had some at Trans over there, so I kind of just went down through a bunch of cows and just grabbed 5 cows, just kind of random here and there that we were working. I worked the Avenger that we had at the Royal. I worked Strike It, which is the chief that goes back to right out of Sephora, and I think we did 5 cows, and I should have known, but I think we froze 55 embryos that day. I was doing a bunch of cows and thinking that, well, I got to make sure I make some embryos, and all of a sudden I ended up with nearly 60 embryos out of like 5 cows. It was really fertile. That worked really good. So hopefully it keeps going that way.
One of the great things Mike and I get to do with our program is work with great breeders, and to have Milk Source and the breeders, Bob and Lori Fisher and Cy Letter behind this bull. That means a lot to Mike and I because great bulls come from great cows, but also great people. It's been really fun sitting on the Showbox talking with you guys about this bull. Mike and I have tremendous excitement for 744HO18214 Siri. He is nearly 3 points of type. He is plus on milk. He's under 3 for somatic cell. He adds some slope to the rump. He'll lengthen the teat, and he's got the best 5 linear traits that you could find on his linear profile for stature, strength, etc. We're excited to have him released through our Select Sires program and hope you enjoy using this bull and tell us about your success stories with Siri down the road. Thank you for listening.